Hi ladies, how are you? I want to jump on really quick. Don't mind me. We were like at ball games all afternoon, so I'm the hot mess. But I wanted to take the time when I got home to sit down and show you some strokes to really practice for Tuesday's pet workshop. So you don't have to have anything perfected by then. You don't even have to paint during the pet workshop if you don't want to. Just watch and paint when you're ready. Let us know if you have any questions at all. We have a video pinned in the feature tab on how to draw, like transfer your drawing of your pet. So it's in there. So take a look at it. It has the picture of Zoe. It looks like this on the front. It's sitting on the tray. So it has this in the front. So take a look at that because it tells you step by step, drop my glasses, on how to transfer your drawing onto your canvas. So we have that. And I talked about colors in there as well, which I will today also. But what I'm going to do is show you a few strokes to practice, and also with long hair, short hair, medium hair. So I'm going to show you those things too. So I know everybody's nervous about it. Don't be nervous. We have time. We're going to take it piece by piece. It isn't a thing that you perfect like that. You're going to do a great job, but don't stress. You can cover everything. You can, if you don't like it, you can fix it. You can wipe it off. You can cover it. So just don't stress. We're going to get through. We're going to do a great job. And I hope you love to paint pets as much as I do. And I hadn't done it for a while, and my love for it came right back. They're just longer paintings. Like, you don't get done with them really quick because there is a lot of depth and highlights that you have to add to pet paintings to make them look realistic. So that's one reason why I don't have them at the studio, because I want to make sure that I can give everyone the time that I need to, and that, like, everybody's pet's different also. So the shadows are different, the highlights are different, the color's different. And so there's time involved in that. Like this Zoe took me some time. I really don't know how much time because it was split up, but I'm thinking, gosh, I think I had upwards of 4.5 to 5 hours in her because I was messing with her. But it was so broken up, I can't tell you. Now, Buddy, because the picture I was working from, this one's my dog, he's older now, but didn't have a lot of color to it. Like, he was so bright white then, and this was taken when the light was coming in the room. And so there wasn't a lot to add to this. So I got done with him, and I would say you can see in the progress pictures, I really slapped them in there. Like, it came together really quickly. I'm also going to work on dry brushing eyes with you today also. I won't keep you forever, but I'm just going to give you some tips and tricks, and then, and you can practice them in your spare time. Okay. But he came together pretty quickly. I was really surprised. So he was probably, I don't know. I had to split him in two too, because I was doing him in between things. And so he was maybe 2 hours, 2.5 hours, something like that. So, but I'm going to start and I'm going to go through things with you, okay? The eyes are really important. And so when we have classes, let me grab my glasses. When we have classes, it's one thing people do struggle on too, because it's the smallest amount of paint. So you really have to dry brush. That's like so important. So I think we'll go over that first, because in a pet painting, the eyes mean so much, and because they need to look realistic, and that's the first thing that you look at. Also, you look at the whole painting all overall, but the eyes, you're looking into the eyes. So I'm going to work on that with you first. Okay, so let me go to the easel here. I'm going to put the backlight on. I didn't want to put that on before, so I don't hold on, it's being tricky. There we go. Okay, all right, so we have Zoe here first, and this is Buddy. So let's work on, we don't have to do these exact eyes, but I want to talk about like the dry brushing of the eyes. By the way, this one's going to my mom because this is her dog as a gift. My brother was just here after we got back, and he was looking at to see what color frame to make with it. But we were thinking maybe like a white frame that's what's the word I'm looking for? That's like the rustic look, where I know the word will come to me later. You guys are saying it, I'm sure. But to pick up some of the grays in here. So hopefully that works. So within Zoe, there's not just the longer hair here. So I'm hoping your pictures don't have all of this. This is the picture my mom sent me, so I used it. Because this actually probably took me more than this. Because this took a little while to mess with, because I didn't want to, after I figured out how I wanted to do it, it didn't take that long, I guess. But this here, it's hard to get that perfectly, and I didn't want to do it perfectly. So that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to do it. See, it's not exact. If you look at it side by side, it's not exact, but it's close. And that's what I want. So you're not doing, the way that I used to create dogs is every hair was exact, every spot was exact, everything. I was crazy about it. And I like how we paint a little bit more loosely now, even on pets. As long as your eyes are good, your nose and your mouth are good, ears are good, this type of thing can be loose. Also, Buddy, like on that picture of Buddy, if you look at his body back here, I can barely make that out in here. You know what I mean? So what I'm working with all the time, highlights and lowlights, looking at where the light hits, where it's darker. I'm always looking at that, you know, so as long as I can replicate that, we're going to be okay. That's why when you see paintings that are completely impressionistic and you know what they are, it's because they have their light sources. They paint them well, and they're shadows. And remember, when something's darker, it looks like it's further back. If something's lighter, it looks like either the light's hitting it there or it's closer to you. So those are things you want to think about, okay? So let's talk about the eyes, all right? So I'm just going to get a chalk pencil, because this is something that is hard for people to do. I'm going to switch this over here. I think it'd be easier for you maybe to see everything. So let me see. All right, so I'm going to try hard not to get paint on my mom's painting. Okay, so let's just sketch an eye, all right? Because I want to show you, and I'm going to, zoom in for this, all right? So let's sketch an eye, all right? First thing you're gonna need is you're gonna need a brush to dry brush with, a small brush to dry brush with. So round brush will do, but go for your round brushes that have shorter bristles. Don't go with something that's soft, that's long. You need something a little bit stiffer with shorter bristles. Even if you have a short filbert, very small one, or a very small flat brush, that would work also. Okay, that's kind of key in getting this down. Okay, before we start too, I want to tell you the range of colors with the two paintings that I have are, I have black, I have white, I have dark brown, which is Van Dyke brown, I have a raw sienna, which is a light brown, I have a burnt sienna, which is a reddish brown, I have a flesh. You don't need this, but I was gonna say, if you have flesh, when you're doing a tongue or inside of the ears here, I used flesh, I used white, and a touch of red. Okay, oh, I didn't use flesh, I'm sorry. I used the white, the red, the red, and the raw sienna, because I didn't have the flesh on my plate. But you could use flesh in here with a touch of white and red in the ears, okay? But I included that. So the blue, sometimes you want to put a touch of blue in the eyes. I'm going to show you this. And it's the smallest amount. Let me bring that super close. Do you see this eye right here? There's just a dash of blue, but you still have to have a little blue. You may not want to put that out right away. You don't have to have a little blue, but if you wanted it like that, you could. This one right here with Zoe, I just have the brown and the white and the black in there. I did not, I didn't put the blue in here. There's all types of, but what you want to do is actually look at, when I was looking at Buddy's picture, the reason why I actually did this is just from drawing dogs before, but Buddy's eyes had this big glare in here. Do you see that in this picture? So I didn't do that. I made the light bounce off the eyes how I saw fit, you know, kind of thing. So if you have that, you can mimic, you know, any eyes, glares off the eyes in a photo, okay? So let me get a brush so I can start sketching this up. All right. So when I'm doing this too, you don't wet this brush. All right. So I think I'll use my old one. So let's go with the brown. All right. I'm going to go with the brown. You're going to use the smallest amount of paint. I did not wet this brush. If you accidentally wet it first, then you want to dry it off super good. All right. So then I'm going to get a little bit of white. I'm going to wipe it off. I want to make sure I don't have a lot of paint in there. All right. So what I'm going to do is you always start like right inside the edge. We'll put some black back in that where that chalk line is. You're going to start at the bottom, and I'm going to take my pressure off as I'm coming up maybe about halfway. Okay. Just like that. So where people run into trouble, I want to like a little bit, I'm going to grab a little raw sienna, a little bit of my Van Dyke brown, and go back in here to get a little bit more color. Where people run into trouble is they put a ton of color in there. It's literally like that small amount of paint. Let me see if I can. I'm sorry, I have my window cracked, which I shouldn't have left cracked because we have the pool person out there trying to figure out something with the lines. So just a little bit like that. Now that I've that zoomed in, I'm going to just go over it again. So it's kind of like a circular motion, or you can just scuff back and forth and you take your pressure off as you go up, okay? That's your first step, all right? So then what I would do, let me get a fine round brush. Did I put one out here? Yes, okay, so just a pointy brush, all right? And I'm just gonna get a little bit of white. All right, this is going to be your lightest touch, all right? Lightest touch. So there's two things you can do. You can see Zoe's eye right here. It's kind of like a squiggle and it gets thin on the end, okay? A little thicker in the middle. And then Buddy right here, we have like a chunk, like a big white chunk right there. And then there was a glare in his eye right there at the bottom. So I just replicated that from the picture. But then I put that phthalo blue with white over here. So let's stick with the one that we have with Zoe. But this needs to be black up here, guys. It has to be black or this isn't going to look right. Okay, so this is your lightest touch also. And, you know, if you need to build it up, do it slowly, you know. A lot of times also you'll have a little bit of white in the corner of the eye like that. And generally I would get my script liner, but you can use a thin, you know, fine brush and whoops, that's a little heavy. That's why I use a script liner. And you can, you know, put a little bit of a highlight around the eye as well, okay? So because that is so bright, I'm gonna grab a script liner. And I usually do clean up around the eye, or I open it up a little bit more with my black, with my script liner, okay? But what I want you to really work on, because it's so important, is you get rid of the chalk. Everything starts looking better once you get rid of the chalk. All right. It's as simple as that. But it is the dry brushing that I need you to, you know, be careful with, you know. So smallest amount of paint. Look, it's already drying. Smallest amount. I'll do another one. Okay, let me draw real quick. All right, let's do another one. Right up here. And all eyes are shaped differently, but we'll just go with a similar shape and say you'd have that corner in there, okay? So then what I'm going to do, you start inside the bottom chalk line. Barely touch the canvas, especially until you know how much paint you have. Take your pressure off. I circle a little bit. Take your pressure off as you come up right there, okay? Just like that, all right? Then you would go and you would make we can make the other type of highlight if you like. I'm going to get my white. This would be a little chunkier. I could put like my dot here, and then I could take the smallest amount of my phthalo blue and white. The best thing is if you don't know how much paint's on your brush, wipe it off until there's almost no paint on your brush, you know? I could put like a little dash right there if you wanted to. All right. I'm gonna go back to my script liner. Oh, you know, also, Buddy's eyes shows the whites of the eyes. Zoe's eyes did not. So with Buddy's eyes, you'll see the whites of the eyes are here. Once I get that white in, I actually scrub a little bit of brown on the top and the bottom so it looks round. So that white is coming out towards you in the center, you know, so it looks like it's coming out further towards you. So I didn't leave it stark white. I shadowed it here and here, okay? So those are things that you really want to think about when you're creating pet paintings, for the fact that you need your contrast. They're not going to look right unless you're really paying attention to what's darker, what's lighter, you know. So you go here, a little bit in the corner. But of course the highlight, like, you're gonna have to look at your pet and see how much light is around the eye, you know. I could tell you that when Zoe, I had initially, when I put this in, it was a little bit too bright on the bottom, and let me tell you, it was slight, and she looked like her eyes were welling up. She already looked sad in the picture because she doesn't like her picture taken, but it really, it changed the way she looked. So you need to take a look at your photo of what you're working on. And I do suggest, I taped it right next to me. I got that other canvas, and I taped it right next to me. If you saw in the pictures, I kept it like, you know, taped there the whole time. So I'm literally painting and glancing, painting and glancing. So I know you're not used to seeing that. Like, I throw my painting up and I don't look at it most of the time when I'm doing a duplicate, or I'm referencing something, like, I don't have it right next to me. But with the dogs, pets, people, I like to look at every little detail that I can, you know. So let's talk about some strokes. So on Zoe, I'm going to talk about this. So on Zoe and also on Buddy, I was starting with a base coat of a color with a flat brush, okay? On Zoe, I used two tools on top of that. I used a round brush and a rake brush to make the hairs. On Buddy, I only used the flat brush. I used a round brush in some cases, but I didn't use the rake brush. So there's a couple different ways you can do that, okay? Buddy's, like I said, doesn't have a ton of detail because his picture wasn't detailed like this picture. This was probably starting you out with a little bit more difficult painting, for the fact that it had the whole chest and all these hairs in here. If this was just the neck up like I asked you guys to do, it wouldn't have taken as long. But so let's talk a little bit about, like, say right in here. Let's get started on that. I'm not going to paint everything, but I want you guys to work on certain strokes. Okay, I've just had it in my head yesterday and today that I needed to go over a couple of things with you guys with this, okay? Also, if you need help with color mixing, if you're in HQ, we have color mixing videos in there. We have 2 or 3 of them on how to mix colors. If you don't have that, you're in the other memberships, email us at info@kckhq.com and we'll send you a link to it, okay? So say I'm like right in between the nose, or at this middle part of the nose right here, right? First, I want you to work on putting your brush down light, pressing, and lifting it off. This is so important, A, to use the back of this brush so you're making a nice, you know, feathered mark, all right? So I'm going to pull this down here. As you can see, this fades into like a darker brown underneath there, okay? So I'm looking to see what's the color furthest back, all right? And also there's black in there, so don't lose the black, but I'll get some of my brown, and then I also, like, there's a tiny bit of my burnt sienna in there, so I would try to work that into the color above so it doesn't have like a line. So you have a little bit of a dance. So you'd have to put sometimes a little bit of your raw sienna white back into that, all right? And then on this side, you kind of have something similar. We're pulling this out in the middle, so I'm looking at what's behind. Okay, so in the middle, I have a little bit of gray, all right? It's not a really bright gray. It's, you know, just a little bit of a highlight right here. So this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be looking at what's behind. What's behind here? Black. What's behind here? Raw sienna and white. What's behind here? a little bit darker raw sienna with not as much white. What's in here? This is the red with raw sienna and white, or you can use the flesh with a little bit of red and white. What's in here? We have the raw sienna with the dark brown. This is like burnt sienna with the dark brown. So you're gonna think of the darkest colors first. A lot of times you're using the canvas to, you know, leave some black in there, but then a lot of times you have to go and put that black back through. I generally, on these types of paintings, if there's a lot of fur, I'll have to put the black back through. On Buddy, this black was left here, this black was left here, this black was left here, you know. So the black in the eyes is left there. So try to use that to your advantage, okay? So I'm gonna wipe off my brush. I'm gonna get a little bit more raw sienna and I'm gonna pull it, it's a little too much. I'm gonna pull it right here. I want it a little bit brighter down through the middle, taking my pressure off. So I want you to like practice using a little bit of paint, not a lot, holding your brush like this, lifting off, not like this. And look how little paint was on the back of my brush. So not a lot of paint, all right? And then I'm gonna show you like how to layer this up a little bit. First, what I did is I stuck with like my flat brush, all right? I'm gonna get a little bit of dark brown and black. And initially, like I see longer dashes through here. So you do have to think in the manner of dashes when you're creating pets, you know, especially like, so Luann had a great question. She wrote on the page yesterday, I have a short-haired dog. How do I make those, you know, make those hairs? So I'm going to show you that, but that's basically like this hair that's right on Zoe right here, okay? But we have like long dashes, short dashes, almost like dots in here. So you have to pay attention to that. A lot of times you have to go back in also, and you'll go back in and add your shadows afterwards, all right? So, but these are like super light. And when you're making these type of strokes, I want you to make sure that you are starting and stopping at different places. So you're not making stripes, you know, next to each other, all right? And that you're lifting off your pressure every single time, all right? And then you'll do something like this. Okay, you'll have these like little tiny dots and dashes in here. So you'll have like up here I see white. So up here, you know, and it's very light, lifting off with these little dots also. So, but that's what I saw in the picture. I'll show you in a minute. Okay, but I have like these little dots and they kind of fade as you come towards the center. And I guess we want to start from dark to light. So I wasn't paying attention as well. There's some darker like little dots in here first, all right? But you're looking for things like that because, you know, even though it's just a dot, it's going to add so much to your painting. Like as I come down, these dots turn into like raw sienna with a little bit of white on the tip. But I want you to practice, these strokes, all right? So if your dog is short-haired, like over here, let me get some water, all right? Say you have a brown-haired dog. By the way, don't paint, you know, make sure that if you're adding a color that it's not like super, if it's dark brown on the black canvas, it's barely going to show up. You always need a little bit of white. But like for what Luann asked me, you know, we're just going to, you know, if you need to show, if you actually want to show all the short hairs, you're going to be like this, all right? It's just the length of the hair, that's all. A lot of times, like for the long hairs here, and we'll be highlighting and doing other things that'll make sense to you once we get into the tutorial. But when you have long-haired pets or any, like with Buddy, I don't know if you saw that I was like literally, I'm like, let me look at the stroke over there. Like you can make really long pieces of hair with, you know, this flat brush. Like that, always lifting off, a little bit of water. Or you can go here and we can get our rake brush. And these are just strokes, like if you can make a long stroke, you have long-haired dog, you know, and his ears like have long hair on there, you know. And you build it from here, but I want you to like practice like lifting off, lifting off, lifting off, you know, lifting off. Because a lot of times the, you know, the ends of the fur, they're like very thin and fine. I use this rake brush right here on the edge of Zoe. Like I use the rake brush there, and what I'm doing is just this. You can see it now that you're looking at it. That's all I did right here. I left this black show in between, but they're just flicking strokes. But you have to learn that light touch. Your pet portrait will be difficult for you if you don't learn the light touch. See up here on the ears? That's a stroke like this, just like this. Very light. So when you put it down, it's a light touch and you press harder and then you lift off. In the ears, same thing. We have in the ears, like I'm literally, that white part in the ear right here. Let me get this, drop this down maybe a little bit. There we go. So the white part in the ear, we have that. First, we have to layer up everything from furthest back. So first I'm putting in the, you know, that inner ear color. And then I'm layering my darkest to lightest with my colors around here. So you have your dark brown in here first, and then you have your raw sienna with the white. And I do add a little Naples yellow from time to time. I never finished this here. I'm sorry about that. I have Naples yellow, which you don't need. If you ever want like a hint of yellow, you can always put a little cad yellow in your raw sienna with some white, and you'll be fine. This pale yellow, that's a Lucas color right here, you don't have to have that either. You can, if you see yellow highlights, I saw touches of yellow in some things. So like on top of the raw sienna, sometimes I'll use a little bit of pale yellow mixed in with that. So like here, I saw just a touch of pale yellow. So I would use that Naples yellow or the pale yellow in there, okay? But yeah, I was scrolling on you there because I was like, I never did the rest of the colors in there. But then, so the white comes out in front of everything because that's closest to you. So you have to think of that. What's furthest back? What's closest to me? So you're going to work with what's furthest back and then work with, you know, work your way up. All right. So, but in that ear, now that that's dry because I've been rambling, in the ear, I'm going to go like this. I need you to learn the lightest touch, lightest touch. When you're lifting off, one's longer, one's shorter, one's longer, one's shorter. So they're not all the same length, but it has to come down to a little shorter down here. This rake brush is here as well. So this will go for your like short hair to long hair dogs. You can use this rake brush, okay? In tiny areas like right in here when I'm layering it up, you can actually take this flat brush first. I'll show you. You can take this flat brush right here. So Zoe had this, like, this is the color. I'm looking at the color furthest back. So let me get tape here. So I'm looking at that. I'm looking at the raw siennas furthest back. She's really not this yellowy. I think it just printed this way. That's why she's a little darker in here. Also, I didn't make her out in daylight either. So I try to think of that when I'm changing things up for the background and everything. This is a little raw sienna with white underneath here. So you can always start with your base color. It's a little bit too bright. Start with your base color first, all right? So we have that. So say that's what we're doing under the eye, all right? You can always start by putting in a little bit solid. And then what I would do is I'm going to grab, I was grabbing the picture. I'm going to grab, I feel like this whole day has been rushed. I'm going to grab, my son just gets to bat, you know, for the next week on his team before he has to have his surgery and stuff. So we're trying to make it every game. And it's literally like 5 games a week. So it's nice to see though, but we're kind of running from place to place. So then I'm taking my round brush and I'm putting these dashes. And actually those dashes are a little darker. So they start out like they have a little bit more black in them. So, and they're just little tiny, tiny things. Tiny, tiny, tiny. Also, not starting and stopping in the same place. Sometimes you have to go back, wipe off your brush, and you have to highlight, you know, with a couple of colors in there. So within that, I might have a little bit of the white and raw sienna dashes in there as well. But you're literally looking for highlights, lowlights, how long, you know, the dashes are basically, and lifting off, okay? I'm trying to think what else I can show you. So on Buddy's nose, I hardly did any detail at all because you couldn't see hardly anything in his picture. Just a couple highlights on the nose. And actually, his inside of his nose is pink, right? Like that pinkish white. I didn't put that in there. I feel like it would be a distraction. And but with Zoe's nose, there's a little bit more detail. But you're looking for where you have to leave it black, which is, you know, a lot of inside the nose. And then here, I was dry brushing. So here, I always like to make noses, by the way, like this. I remember when I made my other pet portraits a long time ago, my commissioned work, is you dry brush this in, and then you can put that black through there and let it fade up, you know. And you know how they have like those little cracks throughout their nose, those little crevices. So this is where, like, I want you, between the eyes and the nose, you generally have to do some dry brushing, okay? So I have a little bit of black with white. All right. And also, so you know, my plans are this. My plans are to paint one pet at a time. Like I'm going to take, you know, like maybe a dozen pets throughout the year, and I could film them. You know, we won't always do them in the live in the group, but I'll film them. And so we'll go with the most, like, dozen, you know, most popular pets, and then we'll go from there. I have a list I printed. So that's a little dark for me, but I'm just saying, like, this, say this is like the top part of your nose, and I can sketch this for you so it doesn't look so odd. But Zoe's nose was kind of like tilted a little bit. I don't know if she was making a face or what it was. Where was I at? Here we go. She has like kind of a crazy nose there, but say these are the nostrils right here, okay? And then we have like this, the sides here. Okay, and I hope you guys had a wonderful weekend yourselves. So, but there's never like, you don't want like a ton of color, you know? Like it's generally with the noses, it's all about highlights and lowlights. You know, it kind of looks like a pig's nose right now. Okay, so as I come up here, this is like, this kind of fades like, and you have to learn to make your strokes too. One longer, one shorter, one longer, one shorter, which means taking off your pressure. So I actually think like, so pets and humans, I think, are probably the hardest thing for people to master, because the slightest thing can throw it off, very slightest thing, unless it's going to be a, you know, more loose painting. But if you're working on detail, I do think it's one of the harder things for people to learn. And so this will help you in your painting of anything altogether. You know, you're going to learn so many tools for your toolbox doing things like this. So when you have something like that, what you do is you'll go back. Actually, I feel like it's kind of scuffed up already, licking, but you'll be putting like little tiny like crevices through here, little tiny dashes. So I try to, even if when you're doing something a little looser, what you want to do, and up here, I feel like that's not fuzzy enough. So, and don't be afraid, like use your fingers to rub things, you know what I mean? To blend things out sometimes. Don't be afraid to do that. But so if you're going to do things looser, you know, in the painting, like Buddy was pretty loose, all right? I literally, if you look at, you know, if you look at the painting, like I gave you the progression of the painting, if you look at that, you'll notice that he was a hot mess. Like I literally was throwing it in, okay? What cleaned it up is making a couple little details on here, like making these finer details. What else on him? Like maybe right here, a couple of hairs coming here. You always make sure the eyes are good. A couple fine hairs coming off the edges. But I'm telling you, when I tell you I took that 1/2-inch brush and like was literally this hair right here. So if you have a really fluffy dog, I'm going to show you something with that as well, okay? I know this looks all crazy right here. But if you have a fluffy dog, one thing that I do suggest, as always, even if you, I don't suggest you buying all the paints that we use, but the thick white is like massive help, like huge help. So say like we're putting in, the top of Buddy's hair. This is exactly what I did. I took a 1/2-inch flat brush, no water, and see how thick my white is. It doesn't run. So if you have craft paints, totally fine, but I would suggest like a thicker white. Zoe did not need a thicker white, but if you're gonna do a fluffy dog, you kind of need a thicker white. So what I did first is I literally like kind of just move this around in different directions, and then when I got to the top edge, I just took the corner of the brush. And so by the time I got around to, got around everything, and then I looked down the side of like, where did we need the hair started coming down in white initially, and then it had like raw sienna and burnt sienna after that. But say like, this is the top of the head, I literally chunked it in like this. And then here's like, say this is where the eyes, above the eyes started, and then you have your other colors. But this up top was white, and I layered the white up a few times. Once this got all dry, I started pulling these, like maybe some like a little this way, but the little divots, I'm gonna show you, this is exactly how I built it up too. These little divots I left gray as I built it up. I have to move this back up again because I'm zoomed in. But I left gray. So these are things like when it's a little loose like this, looks great from far back, but look up close. It's literally really chunked in paint, okay, that I kept layering up. And as I layered it up in the beginning, I just kind of scribbled right here, but then I started pulling these off to the side, lifting off, lifting off, lifting off, lifting off. So this won't build right now because it's too small of a section to get a little tacky dry. But this is what I did initially, and I like literally just like chunk this in. And as it gets dry, then we can build it up, and we can like make a good direction on where some of those hairs are going. And at the end too, you can always leave or put some of that gray in there. So I also did this. If I thought somewhere should have a shadow, but I kind of went over it, then what I did was I took the smallest amount of gray, took my really small brush, and I would